Hello. Thank you for listening to my presentation today on It is Easy Using My Apps, Understanding Technology Use and Needs of Adults with Down Syndrome by me, Hailey Johnson, and my collaborators, Audra Sterling and Bilge Mutlu. Let's begin with the question, what is Down syndrome? From a medical standpoint, Down syndrome is a chromosomal disorder that results in intellectual disability as well as developmental delays. Some examples of how this could affect some people with Down syndrome are varying levels of ability with literacy skills, communication skills, or abstracting and generalizing ideas. Down syndrome also results in various physical and health characteristics. So, for example, smaller mouth cavities that can change speech regularities, narrow ear canals that increase the need for hearing aids, and a higher need for glasses. Additionally, people with Down syndrome have a higher chance of developing Alzheimer's as they age. From a daily life standpoint, people with Down syndrome often have varying levels of dependence on others. These support individuals may come from a family unit or a caregiver. Some adults with Down syndrome may also want to live independently, increase their social lives, or work more. Many individuals already do live on their own and have done amazing things, but for those who haven't had the same opportunities, technology could potentially be designed to alleviate some of these daily life assistance challenges to give way to more autonomy. However, the goal here is not to make people fully independent, because dependence isn't a bad thing, and it should be considered when designing technologies for this population. Within a job, support could come from a job coach or coworkers. However, some adults with Down syndrome may want more autonomy or responsibility within their job. They also might just want to work more hours. Many people with Down syndrome tend to work in low-paying, low-skill jobs, otherwise known as the 4F industries, which are food, filth, flowers, and factories. However, adults with Down syndrome have an interest in other positions as well and are capable of working in higher pay, higher skill jobs, but may have not been provided the proper training or opportunities to do so. Technology could potentially be designed to alleviate some of these work challenges. But to design technologies that could support adults with Down syndrome, we first need to identify where technology could fit into their lives and in what context they're currently using technology and where they're currently not. So to better understand the current technology use and needs of adults with Down syndrome, we conducted a two-phase exploratory interview study with 3 populations within the Down syndrome community. In our first phase, we interviewed adults with Down syndrome and their parents in dyadic or triadic pairs. In total, we interviewed 6 adults with Down syndrome, each bringing 1 parent and 2 individuals opting to bring an additional support person who was not interviewed. 1 additional parent was interviewed due to his son not meeting the requirements for the study. So in total, we interviewed 7 parents. The adult with Down syndrome participants were interviewed for 1 hour, followed by their parent, who was interviewed for 30 minutes. The interview was designed to allow participants to share their personal experiences about their education, daily life, work life, technology usage, and personal interests. In our second phase, we interviewed 3 experts, which included 1 speech pathologist, 1 special education teacher, and 1 occupational therapist, who all work or have worked with adults with Down syndrome. We interviewed each expert for 1 hour, and these interviews were designed to learn more about their expertise and experience using assistive technologies. These 3 populations were chosen to triangulate the answers to our research questions. We performed thematic analysis on the transcriptions and found 4 main themes with 3 sub-themes each. I won't be reviewing each one of these with you today, so I encourage you to read the paper, but I'll go over 4 highlights and how those highlights map to our 4 design applications. So to start, our participants expressed a difference in expectations for what it entails to be proficient at a skill compared to their parents or the experts. Some of these skills include social skills, reading, and writing. For example, during our interviews, we talked about writing skills, and we asked participants to describe how good they are at writing. And all of our participants with Down syndrome initially answered the question by saying that they have great writing skills. But through probing questions or parent correction, we discovered that 2 participants could write as parents and experts expected. However, the other 4 were talking about writing as a physical task, but did not include things like spelling or composition within their definition of writing. So they're not wrong in their answer. They can write. They just differ in the definition of what that skill entailed compared to their parents. This finding is one that maps to our first design implication for positive reinforcement and ability recognition. To account for this misalignment, designers should build mechanisms for personalization that recognize past learning, the user's definition of the skill that they want to build, objective skill metrics, and an understanding of their current ability. Additionally, designers could consider providing more information to the parents and caregivers on skill expectations and goals that their adult children have for themselves. Next, some of our participants expressed a preference for physical interaction with technology. One participant talked about preferring the old home button on iPhones and not liking that that was taken away and that it's solely a touchscreen now. Other participants spoke about enjoying the use of video game controller buttons, as well as the vibration of the controller. They also discussed enjoying playing Wii games because of the added movement interaction with the game. One of our expert participants discussed assisting individuals with Down syndrome in regulation before they started their therapy sessions through proprioceptive input. So for example, this would include pushing or pulling motions, playing catch with a weighted ball, joint compression, vibration, or bouncing up and down. This therapy technique could be an additive technology interaction to assist some individuals with focusing or task switching. This finding is one that maps to our second design application for multimodal interactions. We are suggesting designers should consider utilizing physical interaction or elements within the individual space when designing assistive technologies. Designers should prioritize visual communication and supplement it with written and auditory communication within their assistive technologies. However, they should also allow users control over the preferred communication style and not assume that they need all 3. Additionally, designers should weigh the benefits and drawbacks of adding voice input to assistive technology, as it could potentially aid in speech practice and speech over time. But right now, it's most likely to cause frustration due to the inability of the existing speech technologies in understanding adults with Down syndrome. Thirdly, our participants expressed a preference for independent technology use after the learning phase, extending beyond family involvement to discover technologies independently. Prior research suggests that parents and caregivers should have a role in technology usage, and we suggest that context is actually important here. Within a family that has less confidence when using technology, the adult children may also use less technology, so extra support for both parties may be needed. However, in families that are more confident in using technology, their adult children may also use more technology and therefore be more comfortable using technology alone. And that learning phase may be preferred to be done independently. So that also might require different type of support for the user. This finding is one that maps to our third design application for clear visual instructions for adults with Down syndrome and their caregivers. Adults with Down syndrome are used to pictorial instruction sheets, but technology could allow for potentially quicker customization of those or video instruction. While designing visuals for technologies, designers should take extra consideration in ensuring that the visuals are age considerate and designed for adult users, customized to be specific to the task, as specific as possible, and show adults with Down syndrome performing these tasks and activities rather than neurotypical adults. Lastly, our participants expressed a preference for personal privacy within a family unit. Many of our participants discussed coming home and decompressing using technologies such as video games, video calls, music, and YouTube. 2 of our participants also discussed using technology to keep in touch with their romantic partners, and choosing to turn off assistive technologies such as reading assistants around their family, or going to their room to take calls when otherwise they would choose to do that in the living room. This finding is one that maps to our fourth design implication for personal privacy and social context adaptability. As I just described, we found that participants with Down syndrome enjoy using technology while decompressing alone at home. And they're also less likely to be using assistive technologies within the home or around family members. The participants with Down syndrome also express a preference for keeping a busy schedule. So future assistive technologies should consider contexts in which the user is at home alone, decompressing, around familiar people, such as family members or close friends, or around unfamiliar people, such as at a community center or in the workplace, and designing the technology to support the various needs within each of those contexts. A commonality among all 16 participants was their interest and excitement for future development of technologies designed specifically to support adults with Down syndrome, and their current enjoyment and regular use of so many different technologies. We've identified 6 areas of support that the Down syndrome community is interested in. These include speech intelligibility, expressive language, social skills such as consent, online and social safety skills, written communication skills, and occupational support. This research aimed to understand how adults with Down syndrome use technology in their daily lives, in which context they utilize technology, and how technology could be used to support them in growing personal or occupational skills that they're interested in. Thank you for listening today. I would like to thank Audra Sterling and Bilge Mutlu for all of their help along the way, and Gigi's Playhouse Madison and the Down Syndrome Association of Wisconsin for recruitment assistance. Please reach out with any questions or comments you may have. Thanks.